Hi, I'm Amber,
Hi, I'm Jessie.
and this is
Glowing in Tech, powered by Clothing Black Females.
Amazing.
So today we'd like to welcome Ife, and Ife is a software engineer at Vodafone, and the common theme in her somewhat varied career has been that she's using insights and technology to innovatively solve real-world problems. So welcome, Ife.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. I'm so
Thank
happy to have you.
you.
You look amazing.
Thank
for
you
starters.
so much, as do you both.
How are you doing today?
I'm really good. I'm really good, actually. I feel like Sundays, I quite like Sundays. Yeah. I don't normally like Sundays because I normally do things on Saturdays, but I'm realising that when you don't do things on Saturdays, Sundays are actually
They're actually
like
enjoyable.
really blessed. Yeah.
Yeah.
No Sunday scaries for
No
you.
Sunday
No,
scaries.
I don't know. That's the first time I've heard that, so I'm guessing no. Yeah.
Yeah, Sunday scaries is like when it's like it's Sunday. It's like, oh, work's tomorrow, and you're kind of like so anxious about that. Oh no, like I have to go back to work. That you're not actually in the present and enjoying your Sunday. So it's good that we're just no Sunday scaries.
No Sunday scaries. No.
So let's get to it. So Ife, I know that you've been super ambitious from quite a young age. Can you give us an insight into where you saw yourself in the future from childhood and where that kind of stems from?
Okay, yeah. So just to be frank, as we like to be, I wanted to be rich, like from a young age. And so as I started going to school, I've always really liked maths. Like I've really liked numbers, and that's something that's kind of stuck with me throughout. But I was like, I like maths and I want to make money. So I'm going to be a banker. Like that was pretty much what it was. And then when I got to uni, I studied maths and economics. I loved everyone on my course, like, all really ambitious, really driven, so driven that, instead of saying, what's your name? They'll be like, what spring week are you going to do? And that's
wow.
just
That's
not
competitive.
really my vibe. And I was just like, yeah, I don't really want to work with people whose vibe this is. I don't think it's for everyone. And for people it's for, like, that's amazing. But I was just, as in immediately, I just was like, I think we have to rethink this. And so as well as loving maths, I've always liked speaking, like creativity, and I thought advertising seems pretty cool as well. Didn't really know the difference between advertising and PR, to be honest with you, so was just applying to both, and that's how I got my grad scheme. It was in PR and it just happened to be technology PR. And then when I got there, I just realized it wasn't as creative as they said it would be. It was very much like I was a secretary, like a lot of admin, reading emails, all of that kind of stuff. It kind of just sucked all the creativity out. And I also think because of the companies I was working for, because it was client based, it was more focused on client services rather than actually creating for those companies. Whereas I feel like if you were doing PR in house rather than at a PR agency, you might have a bit more creative say. So I think that's what kind of drove me out. And then now I'm in tech.
Can you let me know what PR is?
Cool, yeah, of course. So PR is public relations, and that's its official name. What PR actually is, I think we could be talking forever about what PR actually is, but I guess it's gaining authentic insights. So you're selling the story of your companies, and I guess dealing with the public perception, whereas advertising or marketing is marketing is advertising and PR, but advertising is more paid. You pay to it. You pay to gain. I don't work in PR anymore, as you can tell. So advertising, you kind of pay to get that perception, whereas PR is supposed to be a bit more organic and more earned, basically. Yeah.
Okay. So what was it that ultimately fueled you to stop and try something else?
I think I understand that when you're very young in your career, you might not be doing everything that you want to do. So you might, if you want to be a coder, for example, you might not be coding what you want to code, or if you want to do PR, you might not be the person leading the meetings, that kind of thing. So I kind of get that as a base level of a junior employee. But I think the moment I knew I had to leave was when I was looking at the CEO, and I was like, I don't even want to be you. If I don't want to be the CEO, then what am I doing in the company? And I think that was the company itself, but then I think PR as a whole is what I said about really loving the tech that I was kind of selling the story for, but not wanting to be there oh yeah, we've made this. Can you send it to Tech Weekly or Computer Weekly? I want to be there as it's being made. I want to have say in that. And I think it was kind of those two things together that led me to quit.
So,
Yeah.
February 2020, right before the pandemic. So, once you had quit, what happened in terms of now finding out there's a pandemic and now seeing the job applications and the job market just kind of like crashing almost? I think I can say that.
Scary time to quit.
It was Sunday Scaries, but it was like this. It wasn't just Sunday. It was like everyday Scaries. Yeah, no, I think being the kind of person that I am, I was just laughing because I couldn't believe it. I was like, this cannot be my story. Like, you know, I've gained up all this courage to just quit without anything, walk out, and then it's like, oh. And I say, like, it's easy for me to say the kind of story now that I'm in tech, but I didn't necessarily think that it was tech that I was going to go into. I thought maybe I could start, like, doing sales because I've done PR and then maybe try and transition later. But I didn't have any coding experience, none of that. So I was just a bit like, I actually don't know. And I think not knowing is a great place to be because it meant that I can apply to any and everything pretty much. I've ruled out banking and I now ruled out PR, but that leaves so many like jobs out there. So I was just shooting like every single shot possible, and luckily the shot that came out was Vodafone. And funnily enough, I applied for the generalist tech grad scheme because they were like, okay, you need a STEM degree as like a basis. But then for some like software engineering, they said you needed to have done like a certain kind of course, like a computer course. But then when they gave me the offer, they were like, you're going to be on the software engineering stream. Is that okay? And I was like, yeah. I literally, you know, you're trying to get off the phone so she doesn't like change her mind.
Yeah.
Like, are you sure? I was just like, yeah, thank you so much. See you in September. And that was that.
Yeah.
What's a generalist tech? What does that mean?
So I guess it's just like not specifically software or not specifically data or not specifically cyber. It's like you're just a tech graduate, and so you're able to work on a range of tech
Okay,
stuff.
and so do you get rotated across the different specialisms?
Yeah, so you get rotated in general on my grad scheme anyway, but I think with that it's like, yeah, as you said, across different specialisms.
Cool.
Like, can you give us more insight into the actual application process?
Okay, yeah, sure. So I think the first stage, I remember it being very like behavioural, you know, the kind of tell me about a time where you did this, tell me about a time where you did that. And I think what they were testing there was really who you are as a person. And then that was when I got through to the second stage, there was another behavioural interview and then a more technical interview. So I had to give a presentation on like a 5G use case and then work with the interviewer to like make it better. So I think they said something you're going to keep, something you're going to improve, and something you're going to get rid of. And I just think it's so funny because I definitely didn't know how to code, but it wasn't like I had all this knowledge about tech. And I said, oh, we're going to use 5G to do this, we're going to use 5G to do this. And the interviewer was like, but what about 5G? And the moment he said that, because this was virtual, my postcard with everything about 5G fell on the floor. Like, I literally wish I could, like... It just fell on the floor. And I was like, 5G is this, 5G is that. I was like, the thing about 5G is it has so many uses that it's literally just chatting. And I think another thing he asked was like, how long is this going to take? Because you're kind of saying that we're in a pandemic now. And I was like, the thing about COVID is no one knows where it's going to end. And I honestly think... I was just myself at the end of the day. I think when I don't have knowledge, all I can do is be myself. And I think the reason they put me on a software engineering scheme is because where my company is at the moment, they're trying to transition from a telco to a tech company.
Yep.
And so they're getting a lot of software engineers in. But I think what they're targeting more, and what I think, we'll talk about it later, but what they're targeting more is a mindset. Like, I mean, personally, I believe that anyone can learn anything. I don't think that there's any skill that someone can't learn. I think it might take some people more time, but I think everyone is capable of learning something. What you might not be is like who you are, I guess, like your in spirit, the way you learn, like how like agile you are in terms of like what you're taking in, all of that stuff. I don't think that can be taught. And I think personally, anyway, I don't know why they hired me, but personally, I think that's what came across in my interview.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so it's like you passed that part and they said, okay, so you want to be a software engineer. What made them say?
Yeah, software engineering didn't come up in my interview. If Did it? I don't think it did. I'm not gonna lie, because I think if I could specialize then, it would be data, just because I had done maths. So I don't actually know if that came up. But then again, like, this was a long time ago, and I was not in a good place. Like, a lot of the pandemic is like, especially the time I didn't have a job, and like, even so there's time I didn't have a job, as in I didn't have a job offer. But I think even afterwards, having the job, but having like 3 months of like still not doing anything, because I got the offer in like May or April, and it started in September. So it's a bit like blank to me, to be honest. But I don't think it came up.
No, that makes sense. And so when you had your first day and you went into first rotation, how did you prepare for that? And was there a sense of, how did you feel about like now going to this role and thinking, did you spend some time like doing some coding, or were you just like, do you know what, I'm just going to start on my first day, or start?
So you plan to, don't you? You're like, okay, cool, I've accidentally got in this job. I'm going to do all these boot camps, and like by the time I get it, I'm going to like be in a position. But I mean, it was summer and it was hot, and that didn't happen. But I did meet with my team like maybe a month or so before I started. And they kind of just told me about the team, like how they work. It was in innovation, and I think that worked in my favor. So the second, I think, our induction, we had 3 days of induction, and then you enter the team on the 4th day. And so on the 4th day, they told me, oh, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow. It's going to be like really chilled. We saw that you're interested in behavioral science, and we're trying to get our team into that mindset, and we're trying to learn more about it. So if you could just come with some thoughts. And then the next day, they were like, okay, Ife, so behavioral science, like, lead this meeting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's intense.
Wow.
That is intense.
And I think I love, like, I always say to everyone, like, I just love that about tech, because it's always changing. You can literally be an expert one day and then a novice another.
Yeah.
And like, I think in an industry that's so focused on like learning and updating, then it's like, I just love that. It kind of just suits the way that I work. And so I might have not known how to code or whatever, but I had something that the team needed. It was behavioral science, and I could like apply that in a technical setting. And so I think that was definitely something that kind of helped. And then using that to kind of gain, I guess, trust with the team, it was very easy to ask for help when it came to coding or whatever, because I think it's very easy to have, like, to do a knowledge exchange when you have something that someone wants and they have something that you want, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's so tricky when you come in early on and you do just need so much help to begin with, and you feel like you're not... a lot of the time I think it's self-imposed, where we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to deliver value from day one, but it's also like it kind of, for me at least, it was something that made it difficult for me to ask for help, because I was like, how can I ask for help when I'm not able to help them? You know? So it's really cool that you managed to have that so early on with the behavioural science element. And how did that presentation go, by the way?
Oh, it was... I mean, just like I did in the interview. So I'm pretty good at, like... The word isn't BS, because I do know my stuff.
So it's like winging it.
Yes. And, like, there might be some things you forgot. So you just gotta, fill up the gap. But it was fun. It was cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so since then, what has your journey been like in Vodafone?
It's been good. So after that team was focused on like innovation, and I did a lot of like workshops, a lot of design thinking. It wasn't like the most technical team, but I still did like some front end coding and like prototyping, which was really cool. And then moved on to like a public cloud team. And I guess I was working, you could call it like a public cloud DevOps engineer kind of thing. And that was really crazy, because we had just like launched an in-house billing like cloud dashboard. Wow. And originally they were given like 3 to 6 months to launch it. And then they were given a month. Like, it was squashed into a month. And like, that happened to be the month that I joined. So it was like a lot of firefighting, a lot of talking to customers, which is just like really amazing to have the chance to have worked on that. And so I think that was like a huge learning curve. Like, that was probably the most coding and stuff that I've done. And then now I am working as like pretty much a React developer, but technically full stack, but I have ended up doing mostly React stuff. And basically companies that have their phone contracts with Vodafone, the app they use to track their spend, monitor, all of that is the product I'm working on. But because we need to get like more more customers onboarded onto that platform, we need to move it to the cloud just so it can actually like handle like all the demands and stuff like that. And so we're using that as an opportunity to completely like change the app around, make it more modern, etc. And like that's where I guess I come in. So actually making the app look a lot nice and just work like a lot better, just a lot more modern.
Wow.
It's a lot of innovation because you're doing a lot of things at once.
Yeah, so I basically feel like this role now is like a blend of my first two, which I really like.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm always so curious because I see a lot of people come from mathematical backgrounds and somehow are thriving in the coding world. Can you talk about like what skills that you gained from your degree that's helped you now in terms of coding and how that kind of links? As I'm really curious about this.
Yeah, so I think definitely problem solving. I actually bumped into someone today who they didn't do maths with me, but they did maths like maybe like 5 years ago, and they were talking about how you think like before I studied maths, I thought it was going to be like, you know, not 1 + 1, but like maybe like 2 + 2, you know, like just like just like sums and that kind of thing. But a lot of it was like learning a new language. It was like, okay, I know 1 + 1 is 2. I know 1 + 1 is 2, but now I need to tell you how 1 + 1 is 2. So it's like really taking things step by step, and I think that's a lot of like what coding is. And then also just like, I guess I see similar parallels in the way that I could be like on a maths problem for like days, and then the feeling that you get when you finally solve it. And I think that's the same thing you get with coding when your code's like not working, and then you find out, oh, there's a comma, and there's not supposed to be a comma, it's always a comma. So I think it's problem solving, and I think it's applicable to so many different elements, basically. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
It is. And how come you chose the front end life? Are you more, because I know that Amber is also a React developer, and we have arguments all the time about which one's better, front end or back end. So interested in your opinion.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like kind of chose me, but I also don't want like the choice. Like I actually do want to do like more back end. I think it's just a case of like the demand, but at the same time, I really like seeing things. Like I like the idea that I can do this, and like now this button's red and now this button's blue. And I think like with back end, you can't see it.
Yeah, it's not as quick, I guess.
But yeah, no, you can't see it. I think I'm quite a visual person, but ideally I think everyone should learn both, even if you're not like working in both. I think it's cool to see like the full picture.
Yeah, full stack is definitely a great goal, isn't it? Because then you can have the understanding of both sides and how they fit together.
Yeah.
Something I think would be really beneficial for some people to know about your experience about learning on the job, because a lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves, like before I start the role I need to do a course on this because I haven't worked with this language before. What was your experience like actually learning on the job, and did you have an environment which fostered that kind of learning, or was it more like, what was your experience like in that department?
Okay, sorry if I don't answer this directly, my brain just kind of like hops around.
No, go for it.
But one of like when you asked about the tech tea, which I know we're going to go on to later, this was one of the things that I was going to put, because I kind of, I get why there were coding interviews and all of that, but I don't know why we pretend like most engineers aren't just Googling all day. How do I do this? Stack Overflow, how do I do this? And so I think that like element that you spend so much time learning how to code for a coding interview, and that's the most probably like coding that you're gonna do, because the people that you're working with are copying from somewhere, like someone's done it that's done it before, which I think is good. Like, why waste time coding something from scratch when someone's done it before? You just need to change one line. So in terms of learning on the job, I think it was mostly that, like especially in this role, like the one I'm in now, whenever I'd ask the person who's kind of, he's not really above me, but he's been working for longer than me, anything, he'd just be like, Google it, Google it, Google it. So I think there's that element in terms of like, if my job requires something and I don't know it, most of the time I will just Google it. But that I also do have the time to kind of learn the fundamentals, which I do think that is important, by the way. Like I think and I find it really interesting as well. It's kind of like becoming a student again and like learning all these new things. So I do like that I can kind of do a course from scratch, but I just think in terms of learning on the job, it's mostly just been like, okay, what does my job require of me right now, and how can I solve this problem right now? And I think it's definitely very different between like learning something from scratch and applying it and then just like being like, I need to do this right now. How can I do it?
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
It did. And I have a follow-up question from that. It's like you started an innovation engineer, then went to cloud DevOps, and now you're doing React. How did you divide for each of those things, how did you divide your working time? Because I think another misconception is that engineers you're supposed to be working on your project all the time, constantly. But in reality, at least for me, I'm spending a lot of my time doing professional learning.
Yeah.
Like, how did you prioritize your learning when you're moving around through these different tech stacks? Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's actually been quite hard because I think, how do I say this? You just end up, I find that like looking back, I didn't have as much time to learn, or I kind of wish like, you know, those kind of 4 weeks where I was trying to understand how the role was and how the team was, I would have just spent that time kind of learning rather than being like, oh, what can I do? Because I think the time that I had at the start, I just have never gotten again. And I think especially like when I think about my second placement and how, not even intense, but it was just very like reactive and there was always like a custom problem to solve. I think I had less time to actually learn about the cloud as a whole because I was just like trying to work on what I was doing at that time. But in saying that, like, I think the scheme I'm on are really good in terms of like how you should ideally have like 20% of your time like a week to just learn or like kind of do extra. And I think that I have used that time. I just wish, I think, because I'm basically doing it a bit backwards, like in terms of working on it and then actually learning the why behind that. So I think sometimes it's just a bit like jumpy. Your question was
You answered my question. How did you
finding the time? Yeah, it's been kind of difficult, and I think I've probably actually done the most learning kind of outside of work as well. So there's that element also.
Yeah.
This answers a lot of people's fears. So you know, sometimes when you're a beginner and you're learning how to code, how much time should I spend outside of work coding? And is this like an expectation? A lot of people say different things, but you've just mentioned that you spent some time outside of work learning more. Yeah. So how much time did you spend outside of work, and do you think that was necessary?
I wouldn't say it is necessary. So I'm just thinking of when it's happened. It would be, for example, I'd set like aside a Friday to learn. I've tried to do that like every week since I've started. Some have been some Fridays have been possible, some haven't been.
It's so, like your Friday daytime as a learning day for yourself.
Yeah. That's so I said 20%, so that's like one day a week. And then let's say I'll set aside a Friday, but then maybe I didn't finish something on Thursday. So and now it's 12 o'clock and I haven't been able to learn. And then something else comes in. So let's say it's now 3 o'clock and I haven't been able to learn. So I'll start learning at say 3:30 and my Fridays finish at 4. But it will kind of, because I've started and because it's interesting, it will just follow on until like say maybe like a 6 or 7. So I don't think it's necessary. And even the learning I'm doing technically isn't directly linked to my work. It's more for my like personal development. And that's why I think I don't see it as like, oh, I'm working overtime. It's like I've chosen to do this, so I'm going to do that. And I think something you said is that people give different answers. We all learn in different ways. Like there's learning by doing, there's learning by actually like reading, there's learning by hearing. So I think you really need to just understand how you learn and like the best times you learn as well. Like I could be on Code Wars till like midnight just because I'm weird, but then at 8 a.m. like I won't be able to listen to anything anyone's saying. So I think we're all different and you just have to really tune into how you learn.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And that's the end of part 1 of the Glowing in Tech podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. We're so excited for you to join us next week, where you can hear about our guests' tech topic in 10 and also their controversial take of the tech industry. What's the tech tea? See you next week, and be sure to follow us on socials at Glowing in Tech on Instagram, Twitter and TikTok. And also, if you're listening on YouTube, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. If you're on Spotify, click on the bell so you can be notified every time we release a new episode. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback. And